Hi, and welcome to the It's Just Business podcast with myself, Richard Price. In this podcast, I interview some of the best business minds and entrepreneurs, diving deep into their business journey to get those valuable business lessons they have learned for entrepreneurs like you to succeed on your business journey. So listen up, listen in, let's begin. Hi everyone, welcome to the It's Just Business podcast. Today I am joined by Ruari Fairbairns. Did I say that correctly?
Beautiful.
Fantastic. He is the founder and CEO of 1 Year No Beer. Hey Rory, how you doing?
Awesome. Richard, thanks for having me on. Yeah, 1 year no beer. Somebody said to me once, that sounds like a very long time doing something I don't want to do. You could think of it like that.
So, yeah. It could be 1 year, it could be longer. We'll see. All right, so tell us a bit more about yourself. You know, what brought you to 1 Year No Beer, maybe a brief background, and then tell us a bit more about 1 Year No Beer and what it does.
Well, since it's we're on a business podcast here, and we're talking about the lows and the lows and the lows and the lows and the occasional highs of the entrepreneurial journey. Then let me tell you the full story. So I started my working life at about 13 years old, hauling creels off the west coast of Scotland before school. 5 o'clock in the morning, I'd be hauling creels, making pocket money, selling green crab to the French. When I was, I had a very tumultuous growing up. I had a hyperactive brain. Later in life, I was diagnosed with ADHD, but at the time on the Isle of Mull, they didn't know what it was, but they just didn't know they just knew they didn't want it anymore. And so it was very, very, very challenging. And I was in counselling from 6 years old, and 13 years old, I tried to take my own life. And coming back from that, my parents, desperate to try and help me see the light, they were busy telling me that I was special and gifted, and everyone around me was telling me I was bad and naughty. This kind of polarized worlds of being a hyperactive kid. And anyway, so when I was 14, I wrote a letter to Richard Branson, and I said, I'm going to change the world one day, and I'm looking forward to having lunch with you. And what I didn't know was actually going on then is that my parents were fostering a sense of hope. And hope is incredibly powerful. In fact, in the September edition of The Lancet, is about a 20-year study into hope, showing that you're more likely to recover from things like cancer, you're more likely to have success in treatments for major disorders, you're more likely to recover faster from any injury, you're more likely to be successful in your career, successful at university, you will be a better law student because they studied law students and through law. So hope is really a driving force in transformation and helping people see the light. So anyway, at 15 years old, I left school and set up my first business before the legal age. For a couple of years, nice. I tried that. I was absolutely rubbish at it. I was rubbish at almost every area, especially sales. So kind of determined to change that, I decided to go and learn sales. And I started selling door-to-door gas and electric. And I did that for 11 months, one of the longest standing members, very successful at it. But it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. The hardest thing I've ever done is definitely this now, but we'll get on to that. Anyway, another couple of careers, and then I ended up setting up my next business. By the time I was 25, I'd tried 5 different businesses, all which had failed, right? I called myself a serial failpreneur. I could tell you in detail about the different lessons I learned from each one of those failures. They cut me deep. Some of them I learned from, some of them I repeated. Like, isn't that the idea of madness, to keep repeating the same painful mistakes you made previously? Seems like some of us, myself especially, is a bit pig-headed and refuse to learn. So I ended up becoming, I applied from the TB program, The Apprentice. I was back in a pub on Mull telling people my story, and they were like, you should apply for the TV program, The Apprentice. That's where all failed entrepreneurs go, right? Joke. Anyway, I applied, got accepted, went down for the beginning of the filming, sat outside the studio ready to go on, and eventually they said, look, we're not explaining, but you're not going on the show this time. We'll fly you back to Scotland. No, I wasn't going back to Scotland. So I went into Heathrow Airport and I saw, the next flight departing to Ibiza. I'll go there. That's the best place to get over rejection. And randomly, I bumped into an oil broker in Ibiza, and he heard my story and said, come and get a job as an oil broker. So I became an oil broker in London. And this is like the guys in the pits shouting and screaming at each other, buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, all that trading stuff, except it was done over electronic and on the phones. I was excellent at my job. Two worlds collided, partying and being successful. The more I partied, the more successful I was. And I built a name for myself very quickly in crude oil, and then I went and set up a jet aviation desk. And it's a desk that my company had tried with teams of guys previously and failed, and I made them market leader in under 3 years. So I was very good at being an oil broker. And what I'd realized later is that the reason why I was so good at that is that 95% of all of the operations, all of the admin, I had nothing to do with that. That was all taken away from me. I was just there at the coalface, doing the sales, getting on with people, building relationships. That's where I'm skilled. Anything else, I'm awful at. So, and then I guess rather than taking an hour over this story, sorry, Richard.
That's all right. It's an interesting story.
I'm trying to get into the nuts of it. I went through various processes and decided to take a break from booze. Now, I never had a problem with booze. Booze was, of course, all around my life. You know, I was sociable. I was a very sociable guy. I loved to party hard. I loved being the entertainer. I certainly loved the attention from entertaining. But I was never having a problem. People didn't tell me I had a problem with alcohol. I wasn't pouring whiskey on my cornflakes. But I started meditating on the train, and I thought, you know what, I think alcohol is causing me more trouble than I realize. So I approached my boss. I said, I'm thinking about taking a break from booze. And he said, you are committing commercial suicide if you stop drinking alcohol. So it took me 6 months to pluck up the courage, and I eventually did. And I thought, you know what, sod the job. I'm going for it. Being happy and healthy is more important to me than being the number one broker. And in a way, I thought those were totally polarized. I thought I was stepping off into Neverland. I'm going to be this boring person that nobody's going to like. I'm going to be committing commercial suicide. What am I doing, right? But yeah, I jumped into the unknown, and everything got better. Fitter, faster, healthier, happier, better dad, better husband. I was better at my job. I was faster at the math. I grew my business by 50%, reduced our costs by 30%. Every single area of my life improved. And I said, well, hang on a minute. This is totally the opposite of what I thought taking a break from alcohol was. I thought it would be boring and, deprivation and full of pain and all this stuff. But it wasn't. It was only positive. So how do I help more people realize this? How do I help people realize that actually all the advantages, the benefits, being fitter, being healthier, being happier, unlocking all those things in your physical health and your mental health, that instead of numbing out, suddenly you feel all this clarity and energy? Well, it turns out that even if you try telling people, they're never really convinced. They just think that you're evangelical and you're like, oh, you're just one of those people trying to get me to not drink. So we decided to set up a challenge. I know, let's just create a challenge. It's just a challenge like doing a Tough Mudder or a Spartan or climbing Everest. It's something you can get your mates in and say, hey, come on, let's all do this challenge together. It's going to be fun and exciting and adventurous, and we're going to change our lives. And that's where the idea for 1 Year No Beer came from. We launched that back in 2016. We're now over 90,000 members in 90 countries. I can't wait till I say it's 100,000. It'll be there soon. We've had a massive impact. Yeah, thank you. We've had a massive impact, definitely in the UK. We're growing over in the US. On a daily basis, I get tagged in posts and all sorts of things saying, you changed my life. And that is what life is worth living for, I guess.
That's great. Yeah, no, that's a really fascinating story. I didn't know it was such a colourful background of broken and sales and failures. And I think that's like many entrepreneurs, right? We all have sort of our trials and tribulations, and there's no such thing as an overnight success.
Totally.
I'd just like to double click on your transition. Like, oil broking, I can imagine it's pretty well paid. And, you took the sort of big decision to take a leap of faith after your many failures before that time in doing business. How was that transition? Was you starting it up on the side, or was it just a big leap?
Yeah, so let's summarize that first of all. That decision was the worst financial decision I've ever made so far, right? I mean, I stepped off a cliff. I was doing very high six figures cash paid to me every year, very high, almost at 7. And big house, car, all the stuff, everything. For the first 4 years of 1 Year No Beer, I took absolutely not a penny. I was only ever contributing into the business and funding it personally. First year, I put nearly 200 grand into it, which is insane. People said to me in the first year, Ruari, you don't have a business. You have a very expensive hobby of helping people get sober. So what actually happened in the transition? Let's just say all credit right now to my company. So the oil brokerage. My bosses, different boss, and also my colleagues recognized what I was trying to do. They recognized the potential and also the impact I could have on people's lives. And they supported me unbelievably. Like, I don't think you would believe how much they supported me. For maybe a year and a half, I would sit with my laptop open. I would be all day doing these deals. I had a team of guys around me. I'd be on the phone between BP and Shell doing $20 million cargo deals, screaming, shouting. Meanwhile, laptop open, answering people's customer support issues about their relationship with alcohol. And I reckon 50 to 70% of my day I could be focused on 1 Year No Beer. I guess I was very lucky. I'd built up a business that was successful, that had a team around me that could support me while I was doing that I could still be a revenue generator both as an oil broker and in. And whether that's lucky or not lucky or fortunate, or more importantly, whether that's part of the serendipity of 1 Year No Beer. And I think that's the truth. I think that all of these things were intrinsic. I think all of the failures, all the problems, everything that happened for the reason for 1 Year No Beer to be born. And what it is now is such a powerful force of transformation in the world. The actual transition, the moment when I left, happened when in 2017, after coming out of a PR agency's office and being utterly frustrated with spending 25 grand with them and having pretty much nothing, maybe a couple of matchboxes and some newspapers, nothing real digital. It was just horrendous. Ouch. And I was like, this is rubbish. I can do this better, which is usually my statement at any point of finding something frustrating in the business. I think I'm usually wrong, but that's what I say to myself. And I went to a Starbucks, pulled up on my laptop, and I found this study that said, it was a 30-year study into alcohol. And I started searching Twitter, and this is always a good tip, and I've found quite a lot from this over the years. And I started pinging health journalists a tweet, tagging in them and saying, have you seen this interesting study, with this link to the study? 10 I tweeted. 3 got into a conversation with me. So putting good information in front of journalists on Twitter is a great idea. And starting to build relationships with journalists on Twitter is a very good long-term play for your PR. Anyway, yes. Off the back of it, one of them ended up getting in touch with me and said, look, I'm doing this feature on AA and women and how they're secluded and not really, it's not a very inclusive environment for women. And I was like, well, I can't really tell you much about AA, but I could talk to you for about 10 weeks about 1 Year No Beer, if you like. And as I started to talk to her, she was like, you know what, I think I'm going to do the program on 1 Year No Beer. We ended up getting a 10-minute feature on BBC World News in over 200 countries. Now, kind of unheard of for a business to get that kind of exposure. And again, wow. More testament to what we were doing. And a friend of mine saw it and called me up in Italy, and he said, Ruari, I've just seen you on the news. I think what you're doing is amazing. I'm meeting the Dalai Lama next week. Would you like to meet him? So, pulled up my diary and just double checked what I'm doing this week. No. So, of course, I got my ass over to Pisa, and a week later I met the Dalai Lama. In fact, I got the opportunity to ask him a question in front of thousands of people live and, hundreds of thousands of people streaming live. Which was an amazing moment, and then ended up meeting him at his hotel, and it was phenomenal, but it was absolutely life-changing. And the thing that really happened for me was that I had this sudden flashback to all of the craziness I used to feel as a young age, and I suddenly had this connection, and that letter to Richard Branson, and I reminded of myself of why I was put on the planet, and I knew that this was it. I knew the reason why I was put on this planet. I knew that this was going to be disruptive, and this was the impact that I'd written that letter about all those years ago. So I went in on Monday morning and handed in my notice as an oil broker. My boss was like, are you kidding me? You don't need to go. You could still sit around. And and take the pay and chill out and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I can't do another day. I know I have to get both feet into this. So yeah, worst financial decision I've ever made so far, but the best decision I ever made for my health, for my family, for my life, but more importantly, the best decision I ever made for the now nearly hundreds of thousands of people who we've helped change their relationship with alcohol.
That's great. That is a really really inspiring, and I love the fact that you took a conscious decision to go from successful to significant. You want to make a bigger impact, and you saw that, just clicking buttons and trying to broker deals wasn't giving you that sense of impact, albeit, lucrative for yourself.
Yeah, there's something really key on that exact bit there, Richard, and that is that a lot of us are using alcohol to numb out the fact that we're unhappy in our environments, in our jobs, in the things that we're doing, in the things that are in our life. And because of that, whether it's little secret things like boredom, right? Boredom is a big factor in drinking alcohol. But why do we feel bored? We have 100% control over our lives. When we were younger, we had this zest for life that we wanted to do all these things. We wanted to learn that language or have that hobby or study this or research, whatever it was. We need to bring that back into our lives. We need to bring in that joy, that excitement, those hobbies, those things that make us feel good. And then we won't feel so much like drinking. And it wasn't just that. It was the environment. It was commuting via tube into a windowless office in London, doing a job which I felt didn't really do anything for anyone, when something that was really important to me was serving others and making a difference in the world. So of course I'm not going to be happy doing that role, no matter how much you pay me.
Yeah, no, it's so true. So tell us a bit more about the business model. I think you have a couple of challenges, and people pay for those challenges. How did you come up with those pricing points, and how do you make sure that two questions really. How do you make sure that members that sign up see success? How do you try to cultivate them towards sobriety?
Very good questions. So it's funny, I was listening to somebody give business advice the other day to somebody who's starting out their journey, and I was listening to them, and I could hear them saying things which I just knew were way further down the track, right? They were like, you can hire this person, and you can hire that, and you can do this, and you can do this. And I was like, you're not listening. This person is bootstrapping a little business from their house. They're not ready to do any of that stuff. So I thought that was quite interesting. So let's just take that step back. What did we do when we started? Crash, bang, wallop, every mistake you could possibly imagine, we made it. Imagine buying a robot Hoover and placing it down in your house for the first time. The first time, it's got to go and literally bang off every single wall and obstacle until it knows what to do. That was us starting a business, okay? And so the first things were, how did I decide the pricing? Well, we gave it away for free. I believed that we could have a massive impact in the world, and I thought we could do all that by giving it away for free. Truth is, cost an absolute fortune. Actually did a huge disservice to all the people who first signed up, because science proved, and we later proved, that when people pay for it, they have skin in the game. They watch more videos, they engage in the content properly, and they have better outcomes. So that misunderstanding was doing a disservice to our customers. When we started charging for it, we just had a look round at what other pricing was. You see, we'd kind of fixed our target on a couple of things. There were things that were guiding principles that were really important to me. This was not about the elite. This was not about the few. Although we were brokers and we were thinking, hang on a minute, let's aim it for us. Let's charge 10 grand to change somebody. Because what's it worth, right? What's it worth? Changing a relationship with alcohol, fixing your marriage, making you feel happier, making you better at work. I mean, name your price, right? Yeah. And there's people out there who do charge that kind of money for helping people change their relationship with alcohol. Most of them charge considerably more than what we charge when they're in our space. But the guiding part for me was, I can't have anybody look me in the eye and say they can't afford it. So it must be less than what they're spending on alcohol, right? So that was our guiding principle. Unless you are home brewing, or you are I don't know, doing something, magicking alcohol up from somewhere, then you can afford 1 year no beer, okay? Because it's costing you less than regularly drinking. So that was a really important part in our pricing. As you said, what is the model? So we wanted to create Joe Wick style 90-day plan, similar pricing. That's what we launched with. 90-day challenge. Okay. Could I go outside and go and get 6-pack abs by running around? Yes, you could. Chances of you getting there, not hugely likely. Chances of you getting there quickly, very unlikely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign up to a 90-day get abs plan, and I know that I'm going to have the structure and the information to get there quicker, right? And with better results. That's exactly the same thing here. Changing your relationship with alcohol is not abstaining from something you love. It doesn't have pain and angst and frustration and withdrawal and, require willpower. Changing your relationship with alcohol is actually really fun. And it's a learning and it's an adventurous thing because you're adding in lots of new habits. You're adding in distraction. You're learning lots of new stuff. And the insights about your own life are incredible. So that is what people pay for. And then, that's what we started with. And then we saw more and more people go through changing their relationship with alcohol. And they were like, I've just realized that I've been drinking because there are lots of things I need to change in my life, but I don't know where to start. Right, you need coaching. So we started coaching programs. We started a mastermind and group coaching programs and things like that. And then we found lots of people were coming in and saying, okay, well, I'm done with the alcohol thing now. I love One Year No Beer and I want to still belong, but I want to work on the other stuff. I want to really deepen meditation. I want to understand nutrition. What about if I think I'm going to think about drinking again? I'm scared I might fall back to the way I was. Do you have support? So this is where the idea of Live Life Better came from. And so we created a Live Life Better platform. We have lots of different products from meditation, the Take Control program, which shows you how to control your relationship with alcohol, 28-day sugar challenge, caffeine is coming, lots, men's health, women's health, etc., etc., etc. And then it became more about making sure that we were giving programs and products to people that were relevant to, right, I've stopped drinking, now what is ahead for me in my life? So the future or the model, if you look at what we are sort of building as a kind of Weight Watchers for alcohol, we saw with so many members that in their offboarding survey, 74% of members say they'd like to volunteer or give back. And that's an army of people. And they say, when can we bring this to Vietnam? And how do we get this into the Philippines? And can we get you more in Argentina? And then it was like, because we started off with this mission of change the world's relationship with alcohol. And I almost woke up one day and said, how arrogant. How arrogant that we are going to be the ones that change the world's relationship with alcohol. Do you know what? It's not about us. It's about the people. What we've got to do is we've got to empower them. We've got to give them the tools, right? Because if they change their relationship with alcohol, we know that some people around them will also start to change their relationship with alcohol. We've seen that. We reckon it's probably 10 people. Isn't that amazing? Around every single one of our members, 10 people either stop drinking, take a break, or think about changing their relationship with alcohol. So we know they're going to have a wider impact, but let's say they really want to have an impact. Let's say they want to run a localized event, or they want to speak somewhere, or they want to get people in a room and discuss about how awesome it is and how much their life changed, and et cetera, et cetera. And so then it became, well, it's not our job to change the world's relationship with alcohol. It's more about empowering our members.
Okay. No, interesting. I think that's definitely a very key approach, like sort of crowdsourcing, also building a community.
Totally.
And having them lead it. What sort of other tactics have you used to help grow One Year No Beer? Like, what's been successful? What have you seen? It sounds like you've built out the product line a little bit. Have you sort of had any specific turning points with One Year No Beer that sort of you saw great growth?
Yeah, if you look at the BBC World News feature, and not everybody will get a 10-minute feature on BBC World News, but that generated 70 grand in 10 days in sales from that. So it was a huge awareness piece. And for us, we then knew it was just about exposure. So I think that was a big shift. Another shift was starting to hire people and get employees. And I guess my learnings there would be to really, really either learn yourself what it is to recruit good people, or bring somebody in or work with an agency to hire good people, because the cost of hiring somebody who isn't as good as you'd hope is uncalculable in time, in resources, in direction. So that would be my tip, is before you take somebody on, really, really know that they're the right person. And I guess even in that...
How did you get that right in terms of hiring?
Well, I think I think we got it wrong a lot. I think we hired too quickly, and in this place of need and quick and rush, which is where I belong, or where I stay far too often. But I think that getting the right people onto the bus and making sure, there's a part of me which says that really spending a bit of time with that individual and trying to balance up whether you're going to get on from an attitude perspective, I think is absolutely key. But the other part is, the other part of me feels that actually you just won't know. And you won't know until they've been in situ for 3 or 4 months, maybe. And then if you understand that, then you understand that perhaps there's going to be some rotation in the early days. So, I think that was a milestone. And the other really big milestone, I guess, is when we decided to try and raise some funds. And when we were thinking about going crowdfunding in 2017, we're thinking about going crowdfunding, in 6 months' time. And I sent out an email to our members and said, hey, this is who we are. This is the impact we're having. This is where we want to go. We are looking for a 6-figure investor who could help us seed the crowdfunding round. Do you know anyone? Could you introduce us to anyone? And I just, thought, sod it, we'll see what they say. I came in the next day to 74 emails, and we raised 1.1 million purely from our members in 5 weeks.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, wow. And who were these people? They were a 10-year director at Facebook, senior guy at Google, the ex-global head of mergers and acquisitions at HSBC, fund manager, CEOs, hotel owners, like very successful people who ultimately had thought that, just like I did, maybe alcohol is causing me more trouble than I realize. Maybe drinking regularly is impeding my life. Maybe, having that regular beer or the regular session or whatever it is holding me back. And I wonder if this challenge is going to give me that insight. And then more importantly, these people have got not just got through the challenge, they've obviously done the challenge, had a massive life change, so much so. I've had somebody say to me, Ruari, even if I lost the £100,000 I'm investing in 1 Year No Beer, it wouldn't be equivalent to the value I've had from the challenge, which is phenomenal.
That's big.
It is big. Absolutely. So, and then I guess skipping around a bit, but the other major milestone was in the decision and the choice. Choosing to charge was a major milestone and a shift into the business that allowed it then move from an expensive hobby to actually a business. And I think that, and then the other one was we were wondering whether we would do community. And we were like, community or not community? I hope you don't start a business without thinking about community today, because community is absolutely the lifeblood of business. Community is everything for 1 Year No Beer. We are powered by the people. We are created by the people. Our program is delivered by the people. We're funded by the people. It is all about that. And that's why now I see it more like an ecosystem. It's beyond me. It's beyond the just the staff. It's beyond what we're doing. There's something much bigger here, and it's growing. And I think that's what's really exciting. And if you can get those people in the early days, if you can get them to really champion you, touch wood, right? It doesn't feel like this, but I think you become invincible. Like, I think it's hard for you. I think it's hard. And don't get me wrong, like, I don't feel invincible. There's plenty of times when I think, oh God, we're going to go into a brick wall here. And I have fears. And I wonder if we've made mistakes and costly errors. And there's things like pandemics which are thrown. But then when I look back and we've made it through that and we've come through stronger, and And then we have a crowdfunding campaign like we did last year, where we did almost more than double in 24 or 48 hours of going live of what we did. We raised 1.8 million. It's like, wow, there's so much power here. I don't know why I was feeling fearful. I don't know why I was feeling full of doubt. When you've got a community that really champions what you do, I think it makes you pretty strong.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, just purely for the fact that you've got that strong mission there to improve people's lives through this, path to sobriety. And many people feel, they relate pain to alcohol, right? It's not necessarily a joy, but it's something that people do just, as you say, out of boredom or out of just socializing. So yeah, I mean, I think community first approach is super key, and for any company building growth in any business at all. So Ruari, I guess you're at the helm. You started 1 year no beer. Can I assume that you don't drink beer anymore?
I drink like a truckload. Look at my eyeballs. What are you talking about? Been on the skin all day today. It's not about not drinking. So the point about 1 year no beer, the whole point about 1 year no beer, let's just get this completely right. The whole point about 1 year no beer is that I know with absolute certainty that you and everybody listening who regularly drinks, so I'm just talking about 3 glasses of wine a week or more, so really not much, right? 5 pints a week or more. If you're regularly drinking that much alcohol, then I know that if I pluck you out of your relationship with alcohol and transform you to 90 days from now, having gone through the challenge, I know you won't drink anywhere near as much or at all anymore. And that is not because I brainwashed you, not because I sold something aggressively to you, but because you saw the truth of what alcohol was doing to you. Okay? That's what I know. It's just like being in an abusive relationship, in a toxic relationship. Okay, now alcohol is 100% toxic. We know it's ethanol. If the same labeling was on cigarettes as on alcohol, it would have a skull and crossbones on it, because ethanol does in the hardware store, right? So it would also say, this is going to make you feel more depressed. It's going to make you feel more anxious. This is going to make you perform worse at your job. It may give you suicidal thoughts. It's going to make you gain weight. Could you imagine if that was on the bottle? Right? If they were forced to do that. So that's the truth. But we are in a toxic relationship. When we're drinking regularly, we're in a toxic relationship with alcohol, which means we can't see the abuse. Why do abused partners stay in those relationships? Because they don't see the truth, because they cover it up, because they want to believe in something, the truth. Or am I getting relaxation? It helps me have fun. It helps me do business deals. It helps me be successful. It's the only reason I'm an entrepreneur. All of this bollocks. And what I know is that when you separate from that toxic relationship, I keep saying 90 days, and there's a good reason behind that, but start with 28. It's there as the starter. For at least 28 days, if not 90 days, you just won't want to allow it back in as much. And so, 95% of our members say they change their relationship with alcohol. 87% of our members choose to carry on alcohol-free after their challenge. That is massive, right? These are people who said, I didn't know if I could do a week. And now they're just, you know what, actually, I'm probably not going to go. I don't think I'm going to jump back into having a drink just yet. I'm feeling too good. I don't want to lose this feeling. So what do? Never drinking again was too difficult for me. It wasn't that it was too difficult. It just wasn't right. I didn't want to be told no. I wasn't a problem drinker in the first place. And so I did 2 years alcohol free. And while I was on that discovery, I overturned every area of my life. I moved from the city. I moved back to Scotland. I realized that I need to be near the sea because, I was born on an island and I was living landlocked in Buckinghamshire. Yes, that was causing me to have a more intimate relationship with alcohol. All of these things were. So I transformed all of those things. And then I was like, well, hang on a minute. I still want to have a drink whenever I want to have a drink. And now I drink as much as I want whenever I want. I usually choose not to have a drink. So for instance, I haven't had a drink this year. In fact, it was like the beginning of December when I last had a drink. Do I care? Did I crave any? No, zero. I have zero need. I never need a drink. I never need it to relax. I never need it to unwind. I don't need it at a funeral or a wedding. There is never any need. Okay, I might choose to have a drink. I might choose to go for a boys' weekend and get smashed up. If I did that, I would really feel horrendous afterwards because There's nothing like having a break from alcohol for you to really feel the impact of it again, but I could choose to do that if I wanted to. So I think that's where most people want to get it. Most people separate from it for a while, realize, wow, look at the impact it was having. Like, oh my God, I'm sleeping better than ever I was. I'm feeling less anxious. I'm way more productive. So we're talking to entrepreneurs here, right? We had one of the world's top productivity experts come and do our challenge, and he was blown away. He said, I have been searching for 3 to 5% productivity upgrades for a decade, and you've just given me 20% upgrade. He's like, it's one of the biggest upgrades I've ever found, and all I was doing was having a couple of craft beers, maybe 4 or 5 nights a week. It's not even much drinking. Right? Then we had one of a well-known entrepreneur in the UK come on the challenge on the podcast, Nick James, and he said, I've just realized I've been operating at 80% for the last 5 years. Wait a minute, right? We're entrepreneurs. We're trying to start businesses. We need clarity. We need focus. We need energy. We need to feel productive. Not just productive for the sake of productive, right? I can do that. I can drink 5 coffees and then I will be mega productive, but God knows what I'm going to be doing. I could be origami over in the corner over there. I could be writing a script for a new alcohol documentary and at the same time making, it's just like a whole spaghetti of crap that's not relevant. But let's remove all of that and let's get absolutely focused. Focused, clarity, energy, purpose, drive, a sense of self, so many things. And not only are you getting this extra productivity, but the byproduct of not drinking is this extra energy, this clarity and this purpose, but time, right? Drinking takes time. Hangovers take way more. So suddenly you've got time back on your side, which just means you get so much more done. I lay down the absolute guarantee to every entrepreneur here that the one thing that will add the most spice to your business this year, the one thing, more than any sales page, more than any deal, more than anything else, the one thing is for you to change your relationship with alcohol. And if you do that and you think I'm wrong, so let's say you go and you do the thing and you're like, Ruari, you're full of shit, I don't feel any better and it hasn't really added anything to my business and I don't feel like this challenge was worth it, please call me, because you'll be the first person in over 90,000 people in 90 countries to tell me I'm wrong.
There we go. You heard it first, guys. No, I love that. No, I absolutely agree. And the thing is, I don't know how you've seen the effects during last year and COVID and the lockdown, but
tough.
Everybody's at home a lot more. And,
really
the only places that's open is Tesco's and Sainsbury's and supermarkets. And so, what do? You're just going to have a casual drink at home. So I can imagine you might have seen this in your community.
Huge.
As well.
Well, I'm so glad that you asked this, Richard, because sometimes it feels like you could have been listening to the podcast so far and say, Ruari, this is all really great. Like, well done, hurrah, and well done for you. But don't you realize there's a freaking pandemic going on right now? Don't you realize that we're all scared for our lives? We don't know what we're doing with our businesses. We're stuck at home with our kids. Like, the one thing I need is booze to get through this situation. And yet, the bit I find most puzzling is that almost every single person in our community is saying, thank God I'm not drinking during this pandemic. I don't know how I could cope if I was drinking during this pandemic. So what is really going on there? Why is there such a total polarization, a total mindset shift? Why are we so hoodwinked into believing that alcohol is helping us in these situations? Let's just address those exactly. So we're looking at the news and reading deaths and fear and uncertainty creates anxiety. Anxiety then in our trained brain, our brain that we've conditioned over decades, marketing, watching other people, we believe that having a drink of alcohol will help with that situation. Wrong. Alcohol is a depressant. Alcohol creates anxiety. The reason why you feel like you need a drink is because you were drinking last week, right? And yet, so it's not the medication. It's actually the exacerbation of the issue. And it's the same thing, right? Alcohol ruins your sleep. Even just one drink, so 2 units, will stop you getting the deep sleep. That's the restorative sleep. Now, Why We Sleep. What a brilliant book. There's a reason why all living animals, all animals, since the beginning of time have slept. It's one thing out of all of the evolution that's remained the same for all of us. We all need to sleep. And the transformation that happens in our body, our minds, the cleansing process, the strengthening of our body, the processing of the waste, everything that we get from sleep, which is huge and still not really understood today, we destroy by having a drink. We stop us from getting that. So what that means is you wake up the next day feeling a little bit tired. Now, don't worry, because we've been drinking for 10 years or 20 years. So now that we just ignore that, that's just the normal. Forget it. That's just how I normally am. I'm a little bit sluggish in the morning, but a coffee will sort that out. So I go straight for the coffee. And then there's this whole ridiculous little cycle going on. But the problem is that you have to start with that beginning of spaghetti, and that beginning is the alcohol. So when we knock that on its head, you start sleeping better. When you knock that on its head, you start detoxing properly, you feel better, and blah, 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 blah. So This is the one thing, just coming back into lockdown and everything else. I don't sound compassionate, and I want to say I feel extremely compassionate to everybody out there who is relying on alcohol, feels like they need a drink during a pandemic. I 100% understand. That is what we've been conditioned our whole lives to believe. I would have been exactly the same. I would have had a drink, and I'd been like, oh my God, kids, I can't stand it. Every night we'd have had a glass of wine with my wife, and I just don't know how we'd have survived. So I understand why you're doing that. But I just want you to know that sometimes when you hear something like this and you're hearing me talk, in the back of your mind is saying, you know what, I do think that alcohol is causing me more trouble than I realize. I do think that our relationship is being held back. My company is being held back. The business I'm trying to start is being held back. I do feel overweight. I feel anxious. I feel tired every day. I feel depressed. I feel sad. These things are true. But I don't know how the hell I would do this, Ruari. I don't know how I'm going to do this. That is where all you have to do is step over the line, right? What do I mean by that? I mean that we created a program that is going to make this not about everything you think about not drinking. We think about not drinking, we think it's full of deprivation, pain and suffering and abstinence and boring, and I'm going to hate myself and it's going to be a horrible experience. That's what we think not drinking is. But it's not going to be like that. It's going to be fun. It's going to be adventurous. It's going to be surrounded with people who are championing you on like pom-poms at the side going, come on, we've got you. You're awesome. This is amazing. And you're going to be like, this is awesome. I didn't realize changing a relationship with alcohol could feel like this. The only thing you have to do is step over the line. And that just means either taking the decision. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the 28-day challenge. I'm going to do the 90-day challenge. I know these guys are the pros at it, and they're going to help me change my relationship with alcohol. As we say in all of our marketing, don't worry. We've got you.
Nice. Ruari, I could speak to you for hours on this guy. I'm in the same boat of like, I'm not a true sort of a believer in alcohol, and I don't drink that much as well myself, and I relate to pain, but it's definitely a topic that's close to my heart.
Awesome. How often do you drink?
I think during the lockdown it's been more casual drinking on the wine, so probably I'd say 2-3 glasses a week at least. I'll say at least, recently, probably since Christmas. And actually I do feel it's probably taking its toll, because it's you feel a bit sluggish in the morning, etc. So totally. I should be signing up to you.
So here's the thing, Richard. You are a fortunate individual who is in a position of power, and people are listening to your podcast, right? You're sharing great stuff. One of my number one values, my key principle in life, is lead by example. All right, we have to show up in the world and lead by example. So in saying all of that, I'm setting you up for this, right? I've now explained to you in detail about how this would be the one thing that in 21 will upgrade your business, will help you get that clarity, feel better, survive. Not just who wants to survive lockdown, right? Let's thrive during lockdown, right? Here he is. He's getting limbered up. So, Richard, are you ready to take the 90-day challenge?
Yes, I am.
Yes! Awesome. Good man.
Oh, gosh. We'll see how this goes. All right.
Well
Super. Ruari, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah.
And sharing everything. Me. Where can people find you?
I'm on Facebook and Instagram, Ruari Fairbairns. DM me anytime you like. And I am at oneyearnobeer.com for all of the challenges. Just click on Take the Challenge, 28-day, 19,365. The 90-day is the game changer. The 28-day is the taster. There's also a free 5-day challenge up on the site if you just want to see what it's about. We have a podcast, tons of free blogs, Facebook 1 Year No Beer, Instagram 1 Year No Beer. There's plenty to get on with. So I hope that I've inspired a few of you to just think, you know what, this could be the one thing that really takes my life to the next level in 2021, despite there being a pandemic. So let's do it.
Absolutely. Let's do it. Let's go.
Well done, Richard.
Thanks, Rory. See ya.
Thanks for having me on.
Hey, everybody. It's Richard here. Just a final note to say a huge thank you for listening to the show. If you haven't followed us on Instagram, go over there now and do that. You can find us at It's Just Business HQ. I was quite fired up by the passion that Ruari clearly has for 1 Year No Beer. It was very courageous of him to leave his high-paying job after being fortunate enough to have a nice 1.5 year transition period where he was juggling both as he built the business. This is a question that comes up a lot when considering whether to leave a steady job to pursue your own business. I think the balance is personal, but definitely getting those wheels in motion as much as possible on the side is probably the best route. One key thing that I got from my chat with Rory was how he used Twitter to connect with journalists to get more exposure for 1 Year No Beer. I think it's a huge low-cost strategy for small businesses to use to get more exposure and more brand awareness for their business. And this is something that I'm personally going to start doing this year for It's Just Business as well. Anyway, that's it for now. Until next time, keep pushing.